Our Honorable Chief Guest, the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Water and Environment, distinguished guests, the Commissioner CCD, our colleagues, partners, friends, good afternoon. It is my pleasure indeed to be here with you today as we mark this important milestone where we are launching the Uganda locally led adaptation community of practice. On behalf of Makerere University and the least developed countries University Consortium on Climate Change, we normally call it the LAC, we want to thank the Ministry of Water and Environment for leading this Life AR initiative, and all of you partners, and more especially those people who have organized the Water and Environment Week, to have enabled us to assemble here and launch the community of practice. First of all, why does the community of practice matter, and why is it important to launch it? For us in the academia, we and ourselves here, we know that climate change is not something in the distance. It is not in the future. It is something that is with us. It is a challenge and is affecting our people and communities every day. When we talk about droughts, whether in Karamoja, we talk about landslides in the Mount Rwenzori and Mount Elgon. We are talking about floods. All these affect our livelihoods, our food, our health, and well-being. So it is very crucial that we see ourselves shifting towards approaches that recognize climate solutions that are coming from the people who are most affected. By doing this, we realize that it is not only about implementing projects on climate resilience, but we want to learn lessons, we want to work together and improve over time. With this challenge and the new way of looking at things, our role as academia also changes. We are no longer sitting in the lecture rooms and teaching students and doing research and publishing in international journals in our scientific language, but we want to work with government, work with communities and partners as we look for a solution to build resilience of our communities. And it is through such platforms like the community of practice that we strengthen our collaboration across the policy, across the academia, and across communities, but also sharing lessons with our other colleagues in the least developed countries, where we share knowledge, research, and experience beyond national boundaries. As academia, we contribute through three main ways. The first is research, where we generate useful knowledge. We generate the evidence that is grounded in real contexts, not just theory. And in doing so, we assess the risks and vulnerabilities, and so that we ensure that the decisions are informed by both science, but also the local knowledge. Secondly, we help connect policy and practice. Our biggest challenge is that policies per se do not always reflect what is happening on the ground. And therefore, by generating evidence, we bridge the gap between policy and practice by capturing lessons from implementation and making sure that these lessons inform planning, policy, and future programs. Thirdly, we support learning and capacity. We work with government institutions, we work with the local governments, the districts, the communities, and build capacity by strengthening skills, providing technical support, and building systems that enable continuous learning and improvement. This community of practice creates space for us to learn together, where we can share what is working, being honest on what is not working, and collectively finding solutions forward. Looking ahead, as the academia, we continue to support research and evidence generation, closely work with government, and contribute to this community of practice. Let me end with a simple reflection, that climate resilience is built not only through investments, that by putting money into projects, we get the resilience. That's only part of the story. But we have to work through people, through partnerships, and contributing to learning. Albert Einstein once reminded us that we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created the problems. In other words, we will not solve the problem of climate change by using the same thinking when we were creating the problem. This is exactly why platforms like the community of practice matter. They enable us to think differently, to learn together, and to act more effectively. Wangari Maathai taught us that it is the little things that citizens do that will make the difference. And this speaks directly to the heart of locally led adaptation, where communities are not just beneficiaries, but leaders of change. As we strengthen collaboration through the community of practice and through the LAC, we are reminded that the challenges we face are shared, and so must be our solutions. Through global collaborations, shared knowledge, and collective action, we can accelerate locally led adaptation across Uganda and beyond. I look forward that what we will achieve together through this community of practice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor. And I know Professor will be coming back especially to moderate the panel on how we actualize the very conversations that he's been bringing. And I love that he talks about making sure that there are solutions developed from the very communities to be able to build the kind of resilience that we desire. And very importantly, the statement that you did mention, we need to see things different from the way we created them. They always say that it is only an unwise man, I'm trying not to use the other language, who thinks that there will be change when they've not been able to change anything about what they are doing, or doing the same thing and expecting a totally different result. I now want to bring in our partners, because partnerships, working together, collaborations are very important to be able to reach to the goal that we desire to see. And I'd like now to invite a representative from the Irish Embassy, that is Mr. Paul Luquia, to come and speak to us. Let's give Paul a big round of applause. Partnerships are very important, regional, local, whichever way, international, very, very important to see the dreams come to pass.
I would like to stand on the already established protocol. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's a bit funny to see a black gentleman from Ireland, so don't worry, I'm perfectly Ugandan, just working for the Irish. It's a privilege to join Uganda and the Water and Environment Week. To mark the launch of the Uganda locally led adaptation community of practice is also a very big honor. Uganda is uniquely and strategically positioned as a global leader in locally led adaptation. It's one of the few countries in the world that have both Life AR initiative and the local mechanism. And they're both being implemented concurrently, generating rich experiences across communities, districts, and at national level. This creates powerful opportunities, not only to deliver adaptation on the ground, but also to shape global thinking and practice. Ireland is proud to be a partner in both these flagship initiatives. From our headquarters, Ireland supports the Life AR initiative, contributing to the global efforts to strengthening locally led adaptation across the least developed countries. Here in Uganda, through our embassy in Kampala, we are supporting the local mechanism, which channels climate finance directly to districts through the Uganda Fiscal Decentralization System. Together, these investments reflect a coherent commitment, ensuring that climate finance reaches the local level, and that adaptation is driven by the most affected. This brings us to the significance of today's launch. Uganda has made strong progress in implementing locally led adaptation by learning, but this has remained fragmented, spread across project sectors, institutions, without a unified national platform to consolidate lessons at scale. The establishment of the community of practice, therefore, is timely and very necessary. It provides a structured platform to bring together policymakers, practitioners, academia, civil society, communities in a continuous dialogue. It creates space not only to share experiences, but also to critically reflect, co-create solutions, and to ensure that the evidence informs policy and planning. From Ireland's perspective, this aligns strongly with our broader climate engagement. Uganda remains highly vulnerable to climate change, with increasing frequencies and intensities of droughts and other climate-related shocks. These impacts threaten livelihoods, infrastructure, and long-term development gains. Addressing these challenges requires more than isolated intervention. It requires strong systems. Systems that enable coordination, learning, and sustained investment in resilience. Through Local and Life AR, Ireland is supporting Uganda to strengthen district-level climate governance, planning, and financing. By embedding climate change within national systems, this approach ensures that adaptation investments are locally owned, accountable, and aligned with national priorities. However, finance alone is not sufficient. What is equally important is what the community of practice offers. It's a mechanism to connect practice with policy, a space where lessons from the implementation can inform both national strategies, where innovations can be shared, and where partnerships can be strengthened. If effectively sustained, this platform has the potential to significantly enhance coordination among adaptation actors, improve uptake of evidence in decision-making, and elevate Uganda's leadership in global adaptation discourse. Equally important is the commitment to inclusivity, ensuring that local governments, communities, women, youth, and the diverse stakeholders are meaningfully engaged in shaping adaptation pathways. As Ireland, we remain committed to supporting Uganda's climate ambition through financing, partnership, continued engagement in strengthening locally led adaptation. And in closing, this launch of the community of practice marks not only just a milestone, but a shift. It's a shift towards more coordinated, inclusive, and evidence-based adaptation. A shift towards ensuring that climate action is truly grounded at the local level. Thank you very much.
Let's give a bigger round of applause to our Ugandan from Ireland. Thank you very much, Paul, for that. And of course, like I said earlier on, partnerships are very, very important. I'd now like us to go into a technical presentation, which is going to be looking at the purpose, the structure, but also expected impact of this community of practice that we are talking about in Uganda. And who better to do this than Professor David to come through and give us this presentation. You notice that I don't want to murder people's names, so I just try to avoid the other name. Exactly. Professor David, you're welcome.
Thank you. I don't know how I'm to connect. How do I? No, I've sent it before. Send the present. Okay. Hopefully the presentation will be projected. Yeah, so I'll help you. Mildred, my name is Mfitu Mukiza, a very beautiful name. It means I have a savior. Yes, a very beautiful name. But my name is David Mfitu Mukiza from Makerere University, College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences. And I'll be taking you through a quick presentation to broadly frame the community of practice we're talking about and what we should be looking out for in this community of practice. Is someone helping me with the projection? Excellent, thank you. So I had introduced myself, David Mfitu Mukiza, and go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so this whole conversation on the community of practice is within a broader framing by LDC countries, which have come together to come up with a vision in the pursuit of climate resilient development. And this is the vision for the LDC countries, that all LDC countries want to be on a pathway that is climate resilient by 2030, delivering net zero emissions to ensure our societies and the ecosystems thrive. So in essence, this is about it's taking backwards. It seems to be jumping. What's happening? Very slow. I think it's very slow. Okay. And the ultimate end is to have resilient communities, resilient ecosystems, and resilient economies. That's the broader framing within which this community of practice is coming from. And I think there's an issue of sensitivity. And when we talk about climate resilient development, there is general consensus that comes from existing knowledge. And this is presented in the IPCC report, where I will just quote, prospects for climate resilient development are increased by inclusive processes involving local knowledge and indigenous knowledges, as well as processes that coordinate across risks and institutions, enabled by enhanced access to finance, particularly for vulnerable regions, sectors, and regions. And someone had already talked about this. It's not about financing. And within that broader framing, there are specific aspects, dimensions that are expected to bring about climate resilient development. Number one is ecosystem stewardship. Number two, knowledge diversity, including moving beyond the thinking that the only knowledge is the knowledge that comes from the classroom. So that's why I talk about indigenous knowledges, experiential knowledges, and all knowledges
that bring about diversity of knowledges. Inclusion, someone about inclusion, and then equity and justice. And this must be happening in various arenas of engagement. And these arenas of engagement include community. We are talking about community. And in this case, we talk about local community. We are talking about social cultural arenas, talking about political arenas, ecological arenas, knowledge arenas, economic, financial, and the arenas can be as many as you can. Now, I think I'm having a problem. Could you move for me one slide, please? So we look at COP, LLA COP, as one of the arenas of engagement to bring about locally led adaptation and resilience. So we look at it as an arena of engagement. And I've given very many arenas, but we see this being an entry point where we can do engagement involving different levels, involving different stakeholders, and also bring about coordination across platforms and these levels of engagement I talk about. I want to be very clear on what locally led adaptation means. Locally led adaptation is about making decisions that are led by local people, local knowledges, and local institutions. It does not mean that it's about local, but the center and the leadership. The key word here is leadership. Then talking about measuring success framed by local realities and local framings. It's one thing to measure success, but it's success for who? And who's measuring success? So we're talking about measuring success based on communities and community realities. Again, as a point of emphasis, considering inequities and marginalization at local level. It's another way of you taking a lens that targets and deals with inequalities, iniquities, and marginalization at local level. Things moving fast, okay. Move for me one slide, please. So what is the purpose? The purpose of this, the LL COP of community of practice, pardon me, that's the double COP. It's not supposed to be that single COP. It's to ensure that experiences, evidences are translated into making decisions, but also improvement of systems. People talked about the systems, support systems. If you talk about a farming community, how do you have improvement of those ecosystems hinged on the various knowledges, experiences, and of course, the investments that are being done. So this is about bring about coordination across multiple actors and programs, continuous learning from what is working on ground. I mean, what is working is very important. Again, to make sure that it's not about investing, but you need to learn what's working and what's not working, and accordingly learn from that and scale out. Contribute to collective knowledge on and resilience. There's quite a lot of knowledge there and experiences, but that experience is not tapped into to bring about resilience that is very much required. There will always be challenges. We're having, for example, IFARA program being piloted in various districts. What are people seeing? What are they learning? And when you bring that together, the learnings become larger and much more impactful. And then someone already talked about informing policy, planning, and scaling up decisions based on what we learn from across scales. Next, please. Yeah, and this is the structure, the broad structure of the LLL COP. And again, this is not cast in stone. It's just the framing, and we are just beginning. Very many things will change, but this is the initial framing of the community of practice. We begin, first of all, you have the lead ministry by mandate. It's a Minister of Water and Environment. And you're having the CCD, Climate Change Department, being much more of the entry point for this. And then you have coordination also being linked to the host and also the CCD, who are the focal point. And then you have the facilitator. The facilitator can be many people. It can be a particular group of people, but for the moment, we are saying that the least developed university consortium, universities working with others could be the beginning point for facilitating. And then altogether, the heart is the members. And again, to our side, it's literally everyone is a member, can be a member, but we can have A core group, this is really largely those who are most active and those who are active involved in volunteering to facilitate the, it's supposed to be participatory. And then you have honorary members who are really largely on coordination, volunteering in coordination. And then you have the, if it grows as expected, the expectation that we may end up having something like a board supported by an advisory committee. So this is how generally it is framed from the start, but even as we move on, the framing is going to change in a way that helps to achieve what we intend to achieve. So in this context, this begins with sitting on LifeR program, again, which is one of the initiatives linked to what I talked about by LDC countries aiming at realizing the vision that I mentioned. Resilient communities, resilient ecosystems, and resilient economies. And the issue is about strengthening institutions and bring about systems that can support adaptation and resilience, especially delivering resilience at local level. And then the vehicle for doing this is devolved climate finance mechanism. The word is finance, but does not mean it's about finance. It's about participatory planning, participatory monitoring, evaluation, and learning. And then also you have informed decision-making based on the information that is available. And then again, everything is about whole of society and whole of government. And everything meets here in the middle, where you have local area adaptation, community of practice, knowledge sharing, learning, and then coordination. And the connections can be as wide as you may want, as you may want to have them. But ideally, it goes back to the local communities being there at the driving seat and at the center. The benefits, coordination of different actors, already alluded to, facilitating learning, I've talked about that one, building trusted communities, filtering information and knowledge across different discussions that are involved in this whole process, and then amplifying good ideas and solutions. There are solutions there that have lacked opportunities to be amplified to make sure that those solutions and innovations cut across, and then capacity building, knowledge capacity building through the whole process. So at the moment already, we have knowledge generation happening and documentation through the, for example, in the LifeR DCF mechanism being piloted, knowledge generation and documentation, peer learning exchanges, there is some of the activities that are happening and will continue to happen. And then forming a policy and program design, already there is emerging evidences and experience that are helping in various ways to highlight policy areas of improvement, and definitely this will have to continue. Supporting scale up and resource mobilization, already from recognizing, from learning what's happening, we are generating evidence and rationale, strong rationale of why should there be financing to a given location and why. So because of building learning, knowledge, we are building sound rationale that can be used to justify why funding needs to happen somewhere. I think, can I go to the last slide, please? So, in a nutshell, COP is expected to enable better planning quality that is context relevant, context related, and people-centered in this regard. Stronger inclusion in resilience, building and making sure that the investments done are investments that are very inclusive, especially premised on the fact that you're zooming in to be sure that you can disaggregate the various levels of inclusion that are required. Transparency, very strong indication of top-down accountability is one of the things that's expected. How do we are used to doing bottom-up accountability, but we see this going to be a stronger basis for bring about top-down accountability as opposed to top-down approaches which have their weaknesses. And the investments are expected and are being relevant, reflecting climate risks and local priorities because of in-depth and intentional engagement of communities. Over. Thank you.
Let's give Professor David a bigger round of applause. You can see the teacher in him. I was almost tempted to bring a handheld mic so that you can be able to have the movement as much as possible. Now, we'll be going into experience sharing, but shortly before we do, we need to have a bit of an interlude. Do we still have our Little Earth soldiers here? Yes, please, let's have you here. Let's give them a big round of applause and some warmth. Let's have the Little Earth soldiers give us a nice, beautiful poem or presentation, and thereafter we'll be moving into now experience sharing on some experiences from the learnings and implementation, and of course we'll be starting with the Life AR program, and that presentation will be coming in from the Ministry of Water and Environment. But for now, it's time for these Little Earth soldiers. Yeah, you need to be specific on the wordings. One says there is no planet B. So if you think there is planet B, can we please have some handheld microphones? There's one right here, sir. There's one right here. Okay. We had a second mic. I'm wondering if it is somewhere close by. Okay, right there.
Hello everyone. Hello everyone. My name is Grace Stewart Nisima, and we're the Little Earth Soldiers. We're a group of young people that come together to fight for the environment and for our home. So the Little Earth Soldiers spread awareness, fight for climate change. We're climate change activists, where we spread climate change in different acts like poetry, book writing, dance, and many other arts. So today we're gonna perform a poem. It's called We Woke Up First. Be blessed as you listen.
We did not come here quietly. We came with voices that have been waiting in dry gardens, who are so cracks like broken promises. Waiting in empty plates, where hunger has a louder voice than hope. Waiting in a world where something as simple as clean water is still a question. A right that feels like a privilege. A basic need that still needs permission. Waiting in questions no one answered. We learned from the sun. The Kasana doesn't just shine. It sits, it presses. Oh, it burns.
Oh yeah, that thing burns.
It stretches the day until the ground gives up and the air itself feels heavy to breathe. We learned what it means to live under a sky that does not respond anymore.
No response.
From rain that forgot where we live.
Forgot us.
And you call it climate change? We call it life interrupted.
There is a girl somewhere. She did not drop out of school. School dropped out of it. Not because she stopped dreaming, but because something else started demanding more. Because when the land stopped feeding them, someone decided her body grew.
Our body.
Imagine, they call it marriage.
Marriage.
But what kind of marriage begins with hunger and ends at childhood? What kind of celebration steals the future before it even learns how to speak? Just survival, just in tradition.
Tradition.
Dreams not postponed, but shattered.
Shattered.
And somewhere in that quiet agreement, no one wrote down A girl disappeared.
Disappeared.
Not lost, but traded.
Traded.
Between hunger and survival.
Survival. There is a child somewhere who knows distance, not in kilometers, but in thirst. Where water is not a tap, it is a dangerous one, a tiring one, a journey that sometimes takes the school ahead without her. It is the weight of a jerrycan where a backpack should be. It is small feet on lonely paths, eyes scanning danger, heart beating faster than the sun.
Danger.
And every step whispers the same. Will there be enough? Enough to drink, enough strength to carry home, enough time to make it back for school? Is there enough to justify everything this child must miss just to keep life going?
Will there be enough? And still, you say we are too young to understand, too young to speak, too young to lead.
Too young.
But not too young to live it.
We're living it.
You give us microphones. You say, speak, child, we speak. You clap, you smile, you take pictures. And then the real meeting starts. And suddenly, we disappear.
Here.
No seat with our name, no voice in the vote, no space in the system.
There's no space.
We become a moment, not a movement, a headline, not a hand on the table. And I have a question. If children can stand in the fire, why can't we sit in the decisions?
Why?
If we can carry the impact, why can't we shape the outcome?
Why?
Because I have listened, I have watched, and even in rooms like this, plenaries that decide our future. Tell me, how many children have truly sat at this table?
Many.
Last I checked, we are not the least affected. We are the most exposed. The first to feel it, the longest to carry it, and yet the last to be included in shaping it. So I wonder, is it that we are too young, or that the system was never built to keep us inside? But today, we are inside, not as decoration, but as direction. So don't just clap for us. Please listen.
I am 6 and I know all of the sustainable development goals. Yes, all of them. Don't look at me like that. I did not wake up like this. Actually, it is fault. Because I saw him, 8-year-old, speaking like he read the future. And I thought, so this is what we're doing now. So I went back, did my homework. Now I know SDG 1, SDG 6, SDG 13, all 17. So, Joshua, if I miss one, you got me, right? No, Professor Kano, I got you.
Wait, it's not a boys' meeting. I know them too, all 17.
You see, this is how it starts. Not because we're special, but because someone decided. We're not too young to learn. One child speaks, another one listens. One child learns, another one rises, and before you know it, we are not alone anymore. We are not just children holding problems.
We plant, we question, we create, we lead.
Yes, we act.
We are not just children. We're not growing into responsibilities. We are carrying it. So don't call us the future. The future sounds far. We are not far. We are now.
Now,
We are the voices.
the voices,
We are the learners.
the learners,
We are the builders.
the builders.
We are the change.
We are.
We did not come too early.
We came right on time. And today, allow us thank the Ministry of Water and Environment
for not just inviting children, but making space for us to be heard. For the first time, we have a youth and children pavilion. Yes, our own space finally. So please, don't just walk by. Come through, have a conversation, because the future is actually very talkative. Mwebale nnyo. Point of information. I am an author of the Little White Soldiers book. So if you would like to have a copy, please find us at the Youth and Children Pavilion. It's a must-have for every serious household. Thank you.
Okay, so Joshua, just before you leave, this was not just a poem. Joshua, give us the 17 SDGs in order. He says he wants to give them. He just didn't say it's actually true. So let's listen in. I bet there are many of us here who can say them in order. Joshua, go ahead. Challenge us. Yeah, you can do it together.
1. No poverty. 2. Zero hunger. 3. Good health and well-being. 4. Quality education. 5. Gender equality. 6. Clean water and sanitation. 7. Affordable and clean energy. 8. Decent work and economic growth. 9. Industry, innovation and infrastructure. 10. Reduce inequalities. 11. Sustainable cities and community. 12. Responsible consumption and production. 13. Climate action. 14. Life below water. 15. Life on land. 16. Peace, justice, and strong institutions. 17. Partnerships for development.
Wow! Wow! That is not enough. I think the entire, all of us, please, let's do it the African way, the Ugandan way. We call it kufua, right? Please. This is not just a moment like the kids said.
Okay, no.
Uh-huh. We have a final one. Someone is wrapping it up. Laika? It's done. It is done. Let's give a bigger round of applause. Laika is wrapping it here in just a few. Yes, Laika?
Oh, Mother Nature, so tender, like a mother's soothing care. Always sacrificing yourself with no limits. Beautiful skies, stunning forests, flowless ocean sounds. Gives me a sound of natural perfume and chirping sounds as I go through the forest. She gives us a good ground beneath our feet as we go home. But for how long are we gonna take and suck the salt out of her? Who will hold steady my child as she makes her first footsteps? Dear Mother Nature, my home, my healer, my guardian, my provider, I'm sorry for the way we have treated you. I'm sorry for the garbage we have thrown in your seas. I'm sorry for the pollution we have put in your precious air. I'm sorry for the animals we have extinct. I'm sorry for all the majestic trees we have cut in our path to personal success. I like to believe that our future will be cleaner. I like to believe that our future will be greener. I like to believe the children of the future, which I guess includes yours too, will treat you better. I promise to learn more about your struggles and how to prevent them. I promise to spread the word of your struggles. I promise to protect all your enamoring animal species. It's my time to give back, and I know it may take some time, but I hope my positive actions towards you will treat you better. I don't have to be perfect. I just have to start. I know I'm a little young, but even better that I have enough years to make it right by you. It's me and you until my kind recognize what a blessing you are. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, the Little Earth Soldiers. That's been let's give them a bigger round of applause. And a special thank you to the Ministry of Water for giving us the pavilion. Yes, we agree, you're not just a moment, you are a movement to the children. You are not the decoration in this house, but you are a declaration to the conversations that we are having. I bet even if I gave someone $1 million shillings, and I did randomly, some people might not say those SDGs in order. Who can, okay, let's speak the truth. Who can, in order? You see? I love that we're being truthful. That we just need to stop talking, but get actual with the things that we're doing. Thank you so much. That was a much well-deserved interlude. And now we'll go back to our conversations. And I'd like to invite on experience sharing, particularly looking at experiences from the Life AR program. Allow me to invite Madame Scovia Akot to take on this conversation in a few minutes before we get UNCDF. Let's give Scovia a bigger one. Unless you're saying all the claps went to the Little Earth Soldiers. Welcome, Scovia.
Okay. Thank you very much, and we're glad to have all of you here. My name is Scovia Akot. I work with the Ministry of Water and Environment here, and I'm the national focal point for the Life AR program. I also want to say that we have our districts here. Some of the districts of Life AR are represented here. We have Kabong, Kalungu, Pade, and Chibale. All right, so I just want to take you through what the Life AR program is and what we've done. So if you go back to the slide before, slightly. So I just want to share what it means to design a program with the people that are most affected at the front line. And that is what the program has been doing. And you're lucky to have some of them here so you can chat with them at the cocktail so that they can tell you more about the program. So we have come from systems to impact, from processes to impact. And these processes have not started here in the ministry. They've started with the communities and with the people. Next slide. So the LDC Initiative for Effective Adaptation and Resilience is an LDC program that is across different LDCs, so far 10, and Uganda is just one of those countries. And we are working in 12, but for the pilot, in terms of actual implementation, we've started with 4. And in addition to the 4 that I've mentioned, we have Karenga, we have Yumbe, we have Ntungamu, we have Rakai, Pakwach, and Luengo, I think. Now, you have a copy of our Life AR brochures. You can have a look at the others. Now, next slide. So what has changed on ground? I really want to start with what we've done. One, we have targeted communities that have access now to reliable water, safe and clean water, especially in drought-prone areas. We have rehabilitated or constructed community access roads, and we've improved access to services. We have also farmers that are moving from subsistence farming, or we're supporting the transition from subsistence farming to more productive farming by improving access to markets. We've also enhanced participation of the different groups that are usually underlooked: women, people with disabilities, the elderly, and youth, in terms of taking part in the planning and the decision-making around the investments that we talk about in these boardrooms, okay? We have also had the opportunity to have communities participate in decision-making, even including in risk assessments. Secondly, including decisions around procurement and monitoring of services that are provided to them. But we have also improved the coordination at the lowest level, ensuring that communities work with their leaders at the parish, sub-county, and district level. Next, please. So, how did we get here? So, we have a famous slogan that this is business unusual. We are shifting from the norm, and I like the conversation that was earlier in the room here around shifting from pilots to programs, shifting from boardroom actions to grassroots actions, and that is what we've done. Scaling finance, ensuring that finance reaches the most affected communities. Next. So I've talked about this. So the Life AR program emphasizes that we must, first of all, ensure that the program is owned by the national government. Implementation does not happen with Ireland that funds the program. It doesn't happen with the UK government that is supporting us. It will not happen with the development partners. It will start with us. We initiate the plans, they provide the resources, and together we work to ensure that implementation works out, okay? And then secondly, it has to be embedded within the existing structures of government. And that is what we are doing. We have different platforms right from the national level to the district level that mimic this kind of coordination and systems support for existing structures in government. And then we're also looking at a long-term process and delivery, that we're not doing just a pilot. As much as we'll say this is pilot for a year, for a particular district, is just where we are starting. We're looking at broad programs that can actually deliver change, because change or resilience will not happen in one day. And that is where we started from with our challenges with the NAPA, and now we are saying we need to look long-term with our NAPs. So this is just a true reflection that government is now implementing what we've been talking about for years. And then, in many cases, we have financing. We had earlier on the commitments or the access to financing that we've had through the global conversations. 40 million USD, 50 million USD. But when you track actually, it is noted that less than 20% of that resource gets to tangible investments. And as a program, we've committed that if we receive 50 billion, then 70% of that must reach the grassroots for tangible investments. We're not talking about our meetings in the boardrooms. We're not talking about IT support. We are talking about tangible investments. We're talking about a water for production facility, as an example. We're talking about a market infrastructure. We are talking about a climate resilient road. We are talking about tangible things that communities can directly benefit from, and they can realize the changes that they have been seeking for resilience, okay? So next. So I'm going to ignore all this. I've mentioned this already. We are looking at systems change, at decision level making, at program design, and then at implementation. And we have done all this. Okay, next slide. So I've also talked about this in details. What makes us very different is that we're looking at full systems change, not isolated pilots, where you start from capacity building, you go into ensuring that the systems and structures that exist at both national and local government level is able to support resilient development, okay? And then you invest the resource, okay? And that's what we've done. Now, we are also saying that we are positioning LDCs, but also we are positioning the local governments to be able to mobilize financing. One of the things that we've done is to ensure that all the districts where we're working in, we do risk assessments. And what does that translate into? Evidence. We were talking about evidence earlier on, okay? So they're able to use that information, one, to develop their own climate action plans, and then come later on to the government, to a national level, or even a sector and say, look, we have worked with our communities, we have prioritized some of the risks that we have, and these are things that should be able to help us. Could you finance it? And this is our action plan. And then the Ministry of Health can invest, okay? The Ministry of Local Government can also provide financing, and this is going to be integrated into the national development planning process. But also, any development partner, we have Give Direct, we have UNCDF, you can now use this to support the local governments, and I think that is a more structured approach. Next slide, please. So how does LifeAR work? We are running on a devolved climate financing mechanism. Please go over the slides. And with the go over, this you're going to read, please. This is how we've designed the program from the global level up to the national level. Now, with the devolved climate financing, we have different elements. We're saying, one, we're using existing government structures, and government of Uganda operates on a decentralized system, and that is what we're capitalizing on to ensure that there is service delivery to the grassroots. It's not a first that government is doing. We're learning from other programs. For example, the parish development model that has already done this. But what we're adding is a layer of climate resilience and also a layer of strengthening capacities at the lowest level. Now, with the devolved climate financing, one of the components that we have is that you must have the financing, okay? Where is the money, okay? Where is that component of money that is dedicated for climate resilience? Number two, once you have the resources, can we have coherent planning together with the people that are affected at the lowest level, okay? Number three, can we have the money and the planning go towards climate risk? And that is where we add the element of climate information and climate resilience planning. Please, can you go over the slides? I'll tell you where to stop. Yes, stop, go backwards. So this is the DCF itself, the devolved climate financing mechanism. And then finally, we do monitoring, evaluation, and learning. And we are trying to work around improving this monitoring, not to just focus on expenditures, one, to focus on impact, to ensure that the people that are affected are also part of this process. And we are also happy to let you know that we have partners that are very interested in this, for example, Ireland, and soon we are going to improve this sort of mail to ensure that there is more accountability to the people that we are working with, okay? So, next. So, over the processes of LifeAR, what have we gone through? We went through the first phase that we call the establishment phase, largely on governance, setting up the systems at both national and local government levels, capacity strengthening across different elements, including climate change, financial management, resource mobilization. The list is endless. Then we are into what we call now the test and evolve phase. We're trying our best not to use pilots to lose the meaning of the purpose of the program, because we have designed how we want the funds to flow, the devolved climate mechanism. Now, we work with the districts to ensure that we test some of these elements, but we're not testing and stopping at testing. We're actually implementing. It's a learning by doing, if you want to call it, but it's actual implementation and delivery of results on ground. So we have registered already a number of investments in the districts, but they are here. You will interact with them later. They will tell you how they got there, and that is what we're talking about. So far, in the 4 districts, we have done all that. We want to scale out, okay? We are scaling out, expanding to the other 8 that we had already mapped, but also expanding to other districts, okay? Next. So this is some of the things that we've done, what has worked for us during the testing. And we are soon concluding the testing phase. It has been a 3-year testing phase. We're just ending the 2nd year this March, and then we shall go into the final year. That means we should be by now consolidating, and we are, the lessons and some of the experiences, and refining our work in the 4 districts as we go into the 8, and then later we can scale out, okay? But what we've noticed is that community prioritization produces relevant results. And what is relevant here? It speaks to the needs of the most affected, and that is what we have, that is what some of the things that have worked. We've ensured that we've improved decision making by including the people that must be there. You're talking about women, elderly, youth, all the categories, the people with disability. And then we've also ensured that there is participatory resilience planning together with the communities, engaging the communities to identify their climate risks, and ensuring that local knowledge is integrated into the process and appreciated as we plan. And then finally, some of the things that we've also ensured, we've improved transparency. The districts are here. When we go to the districts, we tell them how much is there and how much is for their investments, and that is known. And the planning starts. The communities actually, even the communities know how much money is allocated to the districts for that and how they're supposed to use it and what the purpose is. We have incidences where the community is actually saying, we demanded for this. This is what we prioritized. And this is how we wanted it. Can you explain why the design is starting to change? And they're holding the districts accountable because they know what the money was meant for. They're the ones who contributed to it. Please, can we go on? So some of the things that we see that needs to improve is the capacity still at the local level is varying, and capacity strengthening should not be a one-off. It has to be continuous. When you see PCCs here, we have established what we call the parish climate change committees. It's a broad membership of about 14, 15 members who represent the different groups in the communities. And they are not elite in most cases, except the parish chief who ensures there's linkage with the district structures, okay? And there's no criteria for you to be there other than being nominated by the communities and them having confidence that you have the integrity that they desire to represent them. And then we need for stronger district-level financial and contract management support. And then we need to deepen community engagement. We've done a lot, but it's not enough. And then the other thing that is critical is all these things can be planned, but without financial resources, it becomes challenging. Next. So these are some of the things that we have invested in the districts. You'll see that this is work in progress. The investments are being constructed in most of the districts. In Shibale, we have 15 boreholes at the moment that have been commissioned. And then in Pade, we have an integrated water production system that is under construction together with a community access road. And then in Kabong, we also have a piped water supply system, and then a community access road. They're all under construction. And then Kalungu, right? We have also a valley tank, which is supposed to support production. And then we have 8 boreholes also being finalized. So that is what we have at the moment. Can we go to the next slides? I think I should be concluding. Now, we've sung about relevance from the beginning. We want to say that the Life AR interventions are not isolated interventions. Earlier on, we talked about the NDCs. And when you look at adaptation, all this is core to adaptation, right from capacity building, right from supporting planning into tangible investments. And when we go to the national adaptation planning, we will have a brief update in a few minutes. We see that this is all aligning. And when you look at the development goals for Uganda, we completely align with all this. So I want to stop there, and I want to thank all of you for listening to me, and glad to have you once again.
Thank you very much, Scovia, for giving us what the experience of the Life AR program has been, the implementation. Do go along the way, learn the lessons, and be able to change the things that need to be changing. Would now like to listen in from the local program and the insights coming in, sort of the kind of conversation that Scovia had. And allow me now invite Justin Oden to come and take us through the local program. Justin, let's give her a round of applause, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Justine. I work for UNCDF as program manager of local facility in Uganda, and also regional lead for the Eastern and Southern Africa region. So it's a very beautiful room. I just realized I don't see the screen. Well done on Scovia. That was a very beautiful presentation. Again. Local, and as presented earlier, is one of the mechanisms. There's several mechanisms in the world, and we are lucky enough, I think, in Uganda to have several programs, mechanism running, Life AR and local. Maybe more, maybe other partners joining, etc. But most importantly, bringing all these programs, bringing coherence and alignment with national systems. So I think Scovia made it very clear. We are building national systems, and it's absolutely necessary and a stepping stone for everything we do, and especially if we talk about locally led adaptation. So if we go to the next slide, just few figures and few words about local facility. We've been operating this mechanism, UNCDF. It was designed by UNCDF since 2014. We learned from other partners. We exchanged with other partners, including Life AR, including World Bank, with support always from the LDC group. We also took a shift, in fact, this year, including a private sector component. And I'll get back to that. What is important is that we are building from an history now of mobilizing partners and catalyzing climate finance, reaching now 320 million climate finance mobilized. and across more than 390 local governments. So we are building also across the world what we call, and what we are talking about today, a community of practice. It's also very core to everything we do. It's true of the different mechanisms, but really bringing this peer-to-peer exchange, not only between countries and as a South-South cooperation, but also between local governments. And from experience, I know that we don't learn better than from our peers. So this is really building from this, that this mechanism, Local, and the other programs bring together, and bringing together this local government is absolutely key. We can go to the next slide. And it's actually key because you know that very well. This was discussed in the morning, but the gap is widening. So when we hear there's a lot of programs, there's a lot of mechanisms, sure, but let's look at the gap. We are not enough. We need to crowd in and to come together because the gap is widening. And it's also true of bringing the private sector on board. It's also where we can leverage and catalyze more for sustainable development. Next slide, please. So this is a specific slide. Some of you might know how Local works. In every country where we have interventions, we use a fiscal transfer systems. So we are completely aligned with fiscal system and fiscal decentralization systems in countries. In Uganda, in fact, we use what is called the DDG, the Discretionary Development Equalization Grant. It's a window of the current fiscal architecture of Uganda. This DDG was created throughout the year and reform processes, and one of the last steps was, in fact, to include this window for climate resilience. So it's now there and possibly usable by any local government. Of course, what needs to be brought here is also the resources. So that's also where the catalytic aspect and mobilizing resources is key and core to what is done. The second aspect that is core also to Local, it's true also of LifeAR. When we talk about locally led adaptation, we talk about grants, but grants that also are earmarked and includes performance embedded in those mechanisms. So we work with what we call performance-based climate resilience grants. And what is important here is that the performance is assessed against climate resilience. So in fact, and the local government's representative here in the room knows that perfectly, performance-based grants have been existing in Uganda since 1997. So it's nothing new under the sun. It's a system that works really well. In fact, Uganda is one of the most advanced countries in performance-based grants systems in the region, if not sub-Saharan Africa. Now we are bringing one component more, the climate resilience component. And then what it does is that not only it incentivizes local governments to do better, to include those climate resilience, mainstream it in plans and budget, but also it allows us, development partners, partnering with ministries, technical partners, NGOs, to know where are the gaps. And it's very important because, of course, throughout this process, what we intend to do is to improve, to get better. But to get better, we need to know where the gaps are. This is also important because, like LifeAR, we work in phases. So we build from a pilot phase, slowly graduating to consolidation, to then with the end goal of going nationwide. At least doesn't mean that it would cover that this mechanism or locale itself will cover for all local governments, all 135 districts in Uganda. But at least setting the framework to allow for any local government to have access to this climate finance. And it's very key because, as we said before, the climate finance that exists, that is there, is already quite small. But it's even smaller what actually reaches local governments and communities. So having these frameworks in place is the necessary first step to actually channeling more resources to bring, to address the needs at scale. We can go to the next slide. And part of this shift that I was mentioning earlier, and in fact, Uganda is piloting this shift in the region and globally, including now market finance and making sure also that the grants has a catalytic role, including and creating the condition for market finance and the private sector to be involved, and for us, development partners, to actually partner with domestic financial institutions. And this is also very key in all our processes, building national capacities and national institutions frameworks to ensure sustainability in the long run. So the next slide, please. So in terms of scale, when we talk about scale, what do we talk about? We talk about, first of all, globally. Globally, we are now, Local is covering 23 countries where the grants are actually channeled through fiscal transfer systems. With different levels of maturity, as I showed, different phases. Uganda is in fact now reaching the second phase, is now in the second phase, reaching the third phase. I'll go back to that. With the purpose of reaching more and catalyzing more. If we can go to the previous slide. Yeah. So there's a lot of figures, but just saying again, in Sub-Saharan Africa, we are also increasing the number of local governments that we are reaching now, building from phases to another, increasing gradually the number of local government. And with one core element is that this mechanism, specifically local, provides also for an ISO standard. What that means is that it provides a framework that can be used and utilized and replicated, and provide also the guarantee to donors to actually know how use of proceeds are, how proceeds are being used in line with these standards. So if we go to the next slide. So as I was saying, Uganda is now reaching, is now in phase 2. We are reaching 2.5 million. And we've deployed now 3 cycles of grants. So what that means is that we started with 4 local governments, Nebi, Kasese, Noya, and Zombo. And those 4 pilot local governments received grants up to $600,000 US across those 4. With the allocation formula that I explained and the performance based on the performance. So they've been using that the first year, implementing, investing in climate resilience priorities that they have identified based on a climate risk vulnerability assessment, as described as well by Scovia. And these investments now, and continuously, we've involved more local governments. So the second year, we had 8 local governments. The third year, we have now 14 local governments. Every year, local governments plan their activities in line with their usual planning process, starting in September, October with local government budget conference, going into the performance assessment carried out by OPM, and then receiving the indicative planning figures, mainstream with climate resilience targets, and then embedding that in their budget by June to start implementation in July. So it's in fact those on a rolling basis, let's say, and on an annual basis, that local governments can plan mainstream climate resilience and actually invest. And we can go to scale like that, because now the framework is in place, because now the guidelines and manual are being used by local governments, and now ministries are handling the mechanism themselves, Ministry of Local Government, Water and Environment, Ministry of Finance, and of course we are bringing more authorities, more MDAs on board to strengthen efficiency across the board. Also because we are increasing the number of local governments. If we go to the next slide. Now in Uganda we are reaching 24 local governments this year for implementation next year. With a total investment, and I'm just talking about the investment of $20 million by 2029, only for climate resilient investments. And I'm really stressing the fact that we are only talking about 20 million for investments, meaning physical infrastructure, projects. It can be nature-based solutions, of course, but those are physical projects selected and prioritized by local governments. If we go to the next slide. So this is just to close and wrap up very quickly, but just to give a quick snapshot as well in terms of what is implemented. We see here the powerhouse with a solar-powered generator, pump water to 60,000 liter water storage tank, and distribution pipes. So this was implemented in Nabilatuk. We have other across sectors. We have this other one is in fact a mini irrigation plant implemented in Kasese this year. Or was it maybe that was last year? Anyway, next slide. So just we have these investment across. What is interesting is also that after 3 cycles of grants, we are going with more. We also see some variations and some trends in terms of investment and what is selected. So this also reflects what are local government's priorities in terms of locally led adaptation. And this also speaks to national priorities, of course, and implementation of national priorities. One of the highest at the moment is water. So that's exactly what we were talking about. Water. Second is, in fact, infrastructure. But by far, now, water is really one of the biggest. We also have a bias that geographically we are also increasing the number of local governments in Karamoja, hence also the need to focus strongly on water management that this sub-region is also facing. I think I will stop here. We have a number of other pictures, but I think just to close with the last thank you slide, we remain available. Uganda is on a pathway and has the framework in place to mobilize more, but we also know that we need to bring the finance at scale to address the needs for Uganda and for the countries across the world to address adaptation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Justine. Apologies, I had to ring the bell that I talked about earlier because our time is really fast spent and yet we still have quite a lot to cover and our PS is actually here amidst the very tight schedules that his day has. So I'd like now to call on Dr. Daniel Nadomi to bring in the NAP coordinator to give us an update on the progress and the linkages to the locally led adaptation. And I think, Dr. Daniel, I will give you about 5 minutes to be able to take us through that before we receive our keynote. And I hope for our technical team, is Tracy online? Are we ready with Ms. Tracy Kajumba, please? Because after Dr. Daniel, we'll be going for Tracy's presentation and then do our panel and close.
Thank you, Mildred, Mr. Chief Guest. My name is Daniel Nadomi. I am making a presentation on Uganda's National Adaptation Plan. Next slide. Next slide. Yes. I want to take you through what we call a NAP. Actually, a NAP is a strategic framework which is aimed at reducing vulnerability to climate change impacts by building adaptive capacity and resilience across all sectors. And in our approach, which we are taking when we are trying to build this NAP, we are saying that we want to integrate climate adaptation into the relevant government plans, into the relevant government policies and programs across all the sectors, and also from the local communities upwards, and from the main from the center to the local communities. When you look at a NAP, it has important ingredients here, which I have highlighted. We are saying that a NAP, which is good, is actually country-driven. Every country has to make its own NAP. You don't expect a different, another country to make it for you a NAP, because the priorities are different. And at the same time, this NAP which we are making is a continuous process, and it is iterative, meaning that when you finish this step, you can continue to another step. But if you discover that the step you have gone to is not really very appropriate, so you again have to come back. It has that kind of iteration. And at the same time, since morning, people have been talking about participation, community participation, and so on and so forth. A NAP is taking on that participatory approach. Everyone is supposed to participate in its development and also and how it is supposed to move. It requires multi-stakeholders, because every stakeholder is important in the NAP process. And actually, this NAP which we are developing, it has to base on the science which we have in terms of climate change. Next slide. Here, as a country, we have received some funding from the Green Climate Fund. And the amount of money which we have received is 2.9 million USD. And the funder, I have talked about them, the Green Climate Fund, and the timelines are here. The project started 30th June 2021, and it is expected to end on the 31st of December 2027. Next slide. Here, when we are talking about our journey in the process of making a NAP, Uganda has been doing adaptation planning. And we started long time ago. Here, in 2001, national adaptation plan, national adaptation programs of action, which we call NAPA. They were established, and they were actually established to help least developed countries to respond to the immediate adaptation needs. Then around 2007, Uganda submitted its NAPA, and this was an early signal of national commitment to identifying and addressing climate vulnerability. Then in 2010, the NAPs were established under the Cancun Adaptation Framework of COP16. And this one was providing a framework for medium and long-term planning. Because here, when we talk about medium, short-term, and long-term, the idea is if an impact has happened, and then you just, climate change impact has happened, and you quickly go, you are just responding to that immediate thing. But then it has also gotten longer-term impacts, which can affect the country in an adverse way. So here, we are saying that the NAPs which were advocated for by the Cancun framework of 16 COP, this is now the framework within which Uganda is now trying also to make its own NAP. So here we are saying that in 2021, the SAP project, which is being funded by GCF, which is actually amounting to 2.9 million USD. This is where it is coming from. It is coming from that framework of Cancun, which advocated for this one. And now we are trying to implement this NAPO process. By the year 2022 to 2024, we have done something. Here we have said our implementation, whereby we had the task force being formed, the sector working groups, civil society organizations, having engagement with the National Climate Change Advisory Committee. At that highest level, we had that engagement already. It has been established, and now we are ready to go. So right now, between 2025 and 2027, this is a period which we are saying that now we are going to have a phase where we are going to have our climate scenarios established. We have vulnerability assessment made. We have adaptation finance tools established. And then we have the final document for the country being made. Next slide. Here, the objective of this NAP exercise are here. They are two mainly. The first objective is that we want to reduce vulnerability to climate change impact by building adaptive capacity and resilience across all sectors of the economy and communities in our country. And then secondly, we are saying that we want to integrate this NAP into our development planning. Therefore, we want now to have that coherent integration of climate change adaptation into relevant government plans, policies, and programs, including development planning processes and strategies within the sectors at the different levels. These are the cardinal objectives which we are basing on to form the country's NAP. Next slide. Here, this country's NAP is going to have 4 expected outputs. The first output, we want to strengthen adaptation planning. And then the second output, we want to strengthen our capacity in the process of NAP. How we strengthen our capacity as a country to develop NAPs. And then number 3 to find a mechanism of securing our finance. And then number 4, we now find a way of disseminating lessons that we have learned from the previous processes of making NAPs, so that now we can be in position to revise, we can be in position to evaluate, we can be in position to monitor the successes, and then also to work on the revisions that we may have identified in the previous mechanism of making our NAPs. Second, next slide. Here, the project which we are heading now, we have achieved quite a number of things. The first one is that the project team has been established, and I am here, and my members, some of them are behind there. We have the administrator is there, and then the finance person is also there, and I am the project manager. Then number 2, the launch has been done. Number 3, the project documents have also, because when you are going to do some work, you have to sharpen the tools, first of all, so that now work becomes very easy. That alignment has been made, and then we have had stakeholder engagement at that highest level. In number 4, we have procured the relevant specialists or consultants who will be helping us in doing this exercise. So what is remaining for us is to come to the ground, because in the morning, people have been talking about NAP, people have been talking about NAP for agriculture, they have been talking about NAP for water, they have been talking about NAP for health. And now here we are saying the NAP for the entire country is not there. Those NAPs that have been developed, those are sector NAPs, but we do not have a country's what? A country's NAP, which is an umbrella framework within which all of these NAPs are supposed to be anchored. So here, the consultants whom we have hired, we have a consultant who is going to deal with the gender aspects of the NAP. We have one for communications. We shall have one who will be dealing with the web platform, so that every information which we have, we put it on the website. And then we have one for adaptation policy. Then we shall have one who will be modeling climate scenarios. And then we shall have another one who will be assessing the climate change risks. Next. My final message, because there is no time, the message is that we need to build Uganda's resilience to climate change together. If we don't do this, there is nobody who is going to do this for us. Everyone who has been speaking since morning is talking about togetherness in terms of building climate change resilience. Let us adapt and build climate resilience so that our country can go green the way the slides are looking. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Daniel. After speaking about the sector NAPs into the need to develop the country NAP, reminds us that the move that government is taking from moving away from the sector-based planning to the program-based approach. I think it's more akin to that one. Allow me now invite a presentation from Ms. Tracy Kajumba, Director, Life AR Secretariat, and she's joining us online. Tracy, I don't know, to our technical team. Tracy, are you able to hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Please go ahead. We have a few minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. Partners in the room.
Yes, please, you can go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can. Your mic was earlier muted.
I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Tracy, we can hear you now.
It was showing the host had muted.
You're loud and clear now, Tracy. Go
Moderator,
ahead.
can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
please, go
yes,
ahead.
yes, 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 yes.
There's a terrible echo in the background. I'll continue anyway. Thank you for this opportunity to talk about communities of practice. We've been talking about this for quite some time now, and especially linking it to the locally led adaptation. As we all know, the locally led adaptation principles have been signed by over 100 organizations, but I think it's important to note that principles are just principles. We have a lot of work to do in terms of implementation, learning, and also monitoring from implementation. And from the previous speakers, Lifeair, Local, and others, I could hear the principles being mentioned in the comments, in the examples that came from the countries. And Uganda is a signatory to the locally led adaptation principles, and we are seeing a number of initiatives that are working towards addressing locally led adaptation. But coming back to the issue of knowledge, knowledge is one of the very powerful things that we underestimate most of the time, and important for adaptation as well. The IPCC Fifth Assessment Report emphasizes the importance of knowledge, and especially local indigenous knowledge, and coherence across the science and community knowledge, because there's a lot of innovation from community level through agriculture methods, and there are also actors who broker knowledge that is very important for adaptation. But we also need to note that knowledge is not neutral. There are people who hold the knowledge and hold the power on how it is used, on how it shapes policy, and on how it shapes adaptation. And this can have impacts on locally led adaptation if we don't watch how knowledge is being shared. And some of the gaps around knowledge relate to high income dominance. We know that access to information through digital methods have limitations, especially in Africa or developing countries. It's very expensive to even have enough data to access information. So if we're using those methods, that means there are groups that are going to be left behind if they are not included. So that's where communities of practice become really important, because the learning can happen at local level. It can be received and processed to be accessed at different levels. But we also know there are critical sectoral knowledge gaps. We don't know everything. The Ministry of Water is doing something, Ministry of Finance is doing something else, and there are different skills that are required in there. So it is important through communities of practice to bring different people with different knowledge and skills to share their experiences so that we are able to have a common position on effective mechanisms on adaptation and resilience. There's a lot of technology advancement coming in, artificial intelligence, IT skills, but these are things that communities cannot use at the subnational level. But if the learning happens involving youth, involving women, involving the groups that have been mentioned, then this can be processed into tools that can advance this knowledge to inform global reforms or national policies and other processes. And there are also challenges of education levels, challenges of language. I know in Uganda we have over 50 languages. In many years when I used to work in Uganda, if I crossed Karamoja, I would seem like I'm not Ugandan anymore because I'm not understanding what they are saying. So how do we capture that knowledge from different regions to be able to feed into the national adaptation processes that are happening? We also have research gaps. Earlier, David and the Dean Revo were talking about the role of universities in terms of supporting learning for adaptation. And I think this is where we really need to capitalize. It's really interesting to see Uganda looking at across society, the whole of society, whole of government approach is playing out well, where we see the role that universities can play other than publishing in journals. How do we use community information to feed into policy, into tools and processes that can make adaptation effective on the ground? So at the launch of this COP, it's a start, it's a good step. We need to really look at what are the advantages. As part of LifeAR, when the least developed countries group did the assessment of the challenges LDCs are experiencing, one of them was always depending on the global north for capacity building, for consultancies to do NAPs and NDCs. But we recognize that as LDCs, we also have so many institutions within our countries, universities, many other institutions of learning, civil society organizations. How do we harness the knowledge that is already there to support government in the implementation of the Paris Agreement? So the communities of practice within the LifeAR narrative is for LDCs to learn from each other. The best practice, if they access, applying for funds, for example, there are countries that are good at accessing funds from GCF and others. What are they doing right that others can learn? At some point, Uganda traveled to Kenya to look at how the DCF mechanism was set up, which the bank has rolled out across the whole country. So this learning within developing countries is important within ourselves because there's a lot of untapped knowledge that we can learn from. Sharing good practice, not only in the LDCs, but also informing global good practice and using this knowledge as evidence to inform the reforms that the global funds are trying to do. So this scope is important at different levels. For the government, I think it provides the evidence, the knowledge from the ground with local voices, which is at the heart of local-led adaptation, to inform policy and programming and investment. And it also gives us the opportunity to tap into the skills and resources of civil society organizations and universities to strengthen adaptation. But for the communities, it also strengthens their voice in decision-making, in participation, in informing programs and policies. So it is really very exciting to see this taking shape. And I hope that we will use it as a trusted space for problem solving, for collective evidence gathering, but also building relationships to implement effective adaptation. I think, as Justin said, different initiatives working together, local, LifeAR, cross-ministry collaboration, development partners, so that the principles are just not on paper, but are implemented to impact what communities are doing for better adaptation and resilience. So I want to stop here and hand over in the interest of time. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you very much, Tracy. It's been a pleasure having you. And of course, to everyone who is following up this conversation online, because we are not only physical, that room here, the auditorium at the Ministry of Water and Environment could not be able to host all of us, but we want to say a special thank you to those who are following in online. I know as the minutes go by, we're slowly but surely remembering that we have journeys home, but we have just one more last thing to do, and we'll have our chief guest speak to us, and we officially launch, and we'll be ready for tomorrow. So allow me invite right now Professor Twinom Hanj to take on a very brief panel discussion, about 30 minutes only. This is going to be one of the shortest panels that you have witnessed. And thereafter, we'll have our chief guest, who is the permanent secretary, speak to us. And he will, after that speech, officially launch. And we'll be calling it a day. Professor Twinom Hanj, please come through. Let's give him a round of applause. He will be inviting our panelists and take on the discussion.
Thank you, our Director of Program for today. It's my pleasure now to moderate the panel discussion, and it's quite also a big pleasure to talk after Tracy, who is leading the Life AR program. She's based in Edinburgh, Scotland. And I'm also happy to welcome our chief guest, the PS, Dr. Okidi. When I look at him, I just remember about 6 years when we were seated in the Windsor Castle, scratching our heads designing this program. So the PS was very instrumental in designing this program. I think at that time we had Tracy also, Joseph Epitu, who has been the national coordinator. I was with David also. So we are happy to see that when we were scratching our heads, we didn't know this would reach this far, but now we have implementation on the ground and we have reached the communities. Our panel discussion will be more about exploring experiences, challenges, and opportunities for locally led adaptation. And we have a rich panel, many of them at the real local level, the community level, where activities are taking place. Allow me to invite our panelists for today. We have Mr. Dr. George Wile Tusabomu from Chivale, is the district planner, where one of the pilots, Scovia called it Test and Evolve. We also have a panelist from Karungu district, the community development officer, Rita Ruzena. Is Rita here? The other panelist is from Give Directory representative, Samantha Tinka. We have another panelist from the academia, Dr. Alex Nimsima. Okay, so I have two ladies here. I'm not sure who is who, but I'll try to use approximation. So our panel discussion, as I said, we want really to tease ourselves and have experiences on what is working in locally led adaptation, the key challenges and gaps, the role of community knowledge and evidence, and how the COP can strengthen collaboration and the priority actions going forward. I would like to start with George. The Life AR program has operated in Chivale district for some time. We have had some projects. I was looking here and I saw the permanent secretary commissioning a borehole in one of the areas in Chivale district. So, could you enlighten us on more on which of the locally led interventions have had the greatest impact in your districts and the main challenges working through local government's system? We know it is not easy. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you so much, dear delegates, for this conference. Yes. Kivale District Local Government is one of the 4 districts implementing the test and the evolve phase of the Life AR project. And Scovia has already mentioned the other 4, the other 3, including Karungu, Padiel, and Kabongo. Maybe before I proceed, I want to request members from those 4 districts to stand up for recognition. Can members from those 4 districts, Kalungu, Padiel, and Kabongo, and Kibale, thank you so much. So these are the foot soldiers on the ground implementing Life AR. Now in Kibale district, we are happy that we have implemented water projects. We have constructed 13 boreholes, like Scovia mentioned, and this came out of a participatory process. Many presenters have already talked about the participatory process under the local-led initiatives. Now, but before the participatory processes, we had a team from the Ministry of Water coming on the ground, and when they came over, they met a team at the district level and they sensitized us, both political and technical leadership, and after which we now moved to the sub-counties. But at the district level, we identified 3 sub-counties that are heavily affected by the effects of climate change. And these are Nyamarwa, Chebando, and Chakazihire. Now, but also this was through a participatory process at that level. So from the district level, then we went to the sub-county level and also trained and sensitized the communities, the leaders at the sub-county level, both political and technical, about this Life AR project. And from there, we moved down to the parish level, where we also conducted sensitization meetings. And also, identification of priorities. Now, that's how the issue of water came on board. Actually, for me as a district planner, my guess was that these communities would consider roads. That was my guess, personal guess. Then we were also moving as part of the TOTs, we were moving with the district production officer, and for him, his guess was that these communities would consider coffee, because for him he's mad with coffee growing, promotion of coffee. But all of us were surprised when all of these communities prioritized water, meaning that now water was the most important issue affecting these communities in terms of, as a result of climate change. So we are happy to have drilled 13 boreholes and the success story. I want to do a little correction. On the first slide that was made by Scovia, it was not the PS commissioning those boreholes in Kibale, it was the Honorable Minister of Finance and Planning, Honorable Matia Kasaija. So you can see, we are very, very happy, but let me say this. Traditionally in Kibale, using our normal programming, we have been budgeting for 5 boreholes, drilling of 5 boreholes across the district. But through Life AR, we've been able to drill 13, and now 2 are coming on board so that we have 15. So call it 15 boreholes within 3 parishes, 3 sub-counties and 3 parishes. I will later get to the issue of geographical distribution of these boreholes. So you can see that is a very, very important issue. But now, in terms of the coverage, these boreholes only covered one parish, one parish in each of the selected sub-counties. And I think later, we are going to request Dr. Kidi, as we plan for the rollout, we could also consider other parishes within those sub-counties, but also other sub-counties that are not yet covered. And I'm happy that this project is putting on board other districts. And I think this is the best way to go. Now, in terms of the other success stories from the program, now, you remember recently we've been having elections. Now, for all the LCC chairpersons in those sub-counties where we're implementing Life AR, they came back unopposed. Unopposed. Now, meaning that the communities have appreciated what Life AR is actually doing. Because for Life AR is on the ground and is community-led. Community-led and is community accountability. You must account to the public, to the communities. Now, I want to talk briefly about the structures. I know Scovia talked about it, but I will briefly expound on it. Now, she has talked about the PCC, the Parish Climate Change Committee. Now, this is the topmost organ at the parish level that is responsible for planning, participatory planning, approval of these projects, procurement of these projects, monitoring implementation of these projects, and recommending payment to the successful service provider. You know? Now, the composition of this committee is all round. It is all round. We have representatives, women representatives, the youth representatives, the elderly, persons with disabilities. We have the private sector, the faith-based organizations, the cultural leadership. All this, we talked about 14 members of the PCC. So it's all embracing, and somebody talked about an all-society approach. So we are actually testing it on the ground, the all-society approach. But also, I think I should mention this as a way of, somebody talked about it, business unusual. Now, 70% of this funding, 70% of this funding is going to the projects. Unlike other programs, I don't mention them here, where you find a lot of funding going for recurrent expenditures, and then very little coming for the real projects. So you can imagine under FAR, 70% is being used for implementation of these projects. So we are really very, very happy as part of the business unusual programming.
Yeah, but what you have talked about, the very nice things. Has the journey been really very smooth, or you have faced some challenges that you want to tell others so that they learn from them?
Thank you, Professor. A number of challenges have been faced. One of them is the overwhelming demand for the services. When you look at the prioritization, the list of priorities that came on board, there were very many priorities, but they had to consider the first priority. Now, all the others are not yet handled because of the inadequate funding, definitely, from central government. So the issue of those pressures is still on, but also the other local governments that are not yet covered. I've already talked about this in terms of the parishes, but also the sub-counties. Then the issue of, I think, community participation previously, I think, has been more of lukewarm, but it is now real. It is now real, and I think there would be need for more capacity building. There would be need for more capacity building, especially in the area of M&E, the mayor. Monitoring, evaluation, and learning is still a little bit work in progress. So we still need to strengthen that, the mail, so that it can inform future programming. But by and large, I think this project is a success.
Okay, I will turn now to Samantha from Give Directory. Maybe you will talk about this organization briefly, maybe 30 seconds. And we want to know how can these financing approaches better reach and empower communities? And the lessons we learn from direct financing for locally led adaptation. Do you think this model we are using is appropriate?
Thank you. I hope I'm audible. Yes, so Give Directly is a non-profit organization that believes in giving unconditional cash transfers to the world's most vulnerable. In Uganda, we've been active since 2013, serving over 116,000 households across the country. Now, when it comes to climate, or before I get to the climate bit, one of the things that we believe as an organization is that individuals deserve dignity, agency, and choice. So instead of us telling them or dictating what they need, we give them cash and they know best what their needs are. One of the benefits of cash is that cash cuts across different thematic areas. So if you think about it, with cash you can take care of your health needs, you can take care of shelter, you can take care of food, and so on and so forth. So when we think about climate, Scovia alluded to this earlier, the locally led adaptation is basically decision-making led at the local level. So when you're putting cash in the hands of households, that is the most local level you can get to, right at the grassroots. So we're asking these families to make decisions, adaptation decisions, and they know. We recently went to Teso region as we were scoping for a new project. And so we met with individuals within the community to ask them, what kind of support do you need? And many of them understood the risks that they faced in climate-prone environments. So it's not that there's a knowledge gap. The issue is financial constraints. They know the risks, they want to change, but they don't have the finances or the resources to make that change. And so that's where Give Directly comes in with the work that we do. I'll talk briefly about, in 2022, we implemented a program in the Elgon region, Bududa, Manafwa, Sironko, and Namisindwa, which we know are districts that have been, unfortunately, affected by landslides and climate shock. And we gave these households that were in the most riskiest of areas, we gave them cash. And we were hoping that they would relocate. What we ended up seeing is that about 39% of them bought land. We went back a year later, and 77% of those individuals had relocated to the new areas where they bought land. That's an adaptation. We also saw 77% of people invested in diversification of livelihoods. That's adaptation. And the most common thematic areas or the most common decisions that we're seeing with cash are around housing, land, livelihoods, and then education. Because I think also culturally we understand the importance of education. So people are investing in education for their families. But this is also good, right? Because it breaks the systemic issues that we have. When people are educated, they can make better choices for the future. So yes, I do think that what the government is doing and what Life AR specifically is doing is great because it's going to the grassroots level. And what we're trying to do as Give Directly, working with the Ministry of Water and Environment, is see how we can complement both Life AR and cash at the household level. So ultimately, the plan is to get to a place where we can work in Life AR districts, maybe not now, and say what happens when cash is added to existing infrastructure improvements that have been able to be implemented as a result of Life AR and Local.
Yeah, but we really know that cash can be very tempting. So you give cash to the households. How do you ensure that they really channel this cash to the purpose and most importantly to climate resilient building activities?
Great question. So this is why community of practice is important, so that we can share evidence. Cash is one of the most studied interventions in the nonprofit space and generally as a modality of aid. And the evidence shows us that contrary to popular belief, people are not spending cash on the quote-unquote wrong things. But I think we also have to take a step back and assess what is the wrong thing. There's a story that I always tell of a grandmother who was given cash as part of our program, and this grandmother spent her money on a TV. Now, who here thinks that a TV is a good decision? 2 people. Most people would say it's not. Why are you spending your money on TV? You should be spending it on housing, on education, on health, on livelihoods. This grandmother was raising her young granddaughter. Her granddaughter would go into the community late at night to watch football in local pubs. And so the grandmother said, I need to know that my granddaughter is safe. The safety of my granddaughter and her future is the most important thing. The only way she could allow her granddaughter to be at home was if she brought what the granddaughter was looking for to the household. Now, who are we to say that that's not a good use of cash?
So I will now turn to the academia, but before I turn to you, Alex, we have another panelist, one of the children who was Adrian in Insiba. Can you join the panel? So as she joins the panel, Alex, you are from the academia, from the Ivory Tower, and the academia has been accused of doing only theory, no practice, researching and writing papers, talking to themselves without informing policy, working with the policy and the communities. From the academic side, could you enlighten us on what knowledge or evidence do you think is needed to inform adaptation, including the NAP and the community of practice, and how we can have research better support both policy and local implementation, and role of academia in this scope.
Okay, thank you, Chair, for that question. People talking about that the university is theoretical, they need to understand that a university, as an academia, you have three functions. We do research, we do training, and we do outreach. But the outreach arm of the academia has been kind of weak, and that's why people have been talking about that we only stop in classes. But in all the three roles, they are very much applicable even in the project that you are talking about. So when you're doing a project like this, academia is supposed to give you evidence. Everything you do, it must be based on evidence. We don't want you to go and put up a borehole, for example. You put up a borehole, you construct a borehole, and after 5 years, there is no water. The borehole dries up. Meaning you did not take care of the water levels. You didn't understand the water levels and how they are projected to change in the next few years. So academia, we just come on board to provide evidence to support your research. Then another thing I want to talk about, as you're adapting, you must also know what you're adapting to. Are you doing reactive adaptation? Are you adapting to what is happening currently? Or you are doing proactive adaptation of what is anticipated to happen in your area, so that as you're designing the road, you know the rains, this is how the rains are likely to be in the next 10 or 20 years. So those two things must be put into consideration, and you can only get that from the academia. Then lastly, academia also have a leverage that we have the human resource. So we train the human resource. So if the academia have this knowledge, like you're talking about local initiatives, if they have that model of training up to the local level, they have the capacity of imparting this to their learners. And these are the learners who are going to work in the districts, who are going to do most of these research activities. So that's what I can say for now. Thank you.
Adri, I saw you doing a poem here, and I was very touched. The children are always following what their teachers tell them, parents and elders. But I saw a lot of innovation. What do you think children can do in this community of practice in influencing adaptation decisions and action?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for that wonderful question. My name is Grace Nsima. I'm a 12-year-old climate justice activist. I'm the team lead of the Little White Soldiers, the author of the Little White Soldiers book, and the Youth Go Green Climate Champion and Ambassador. I'm very happy to be here and honored to be given an opportunity to share my mind. First of all, children are already doing many things to toward this climate crisis. If you go to the Youth and Children Pavilion, you'll find different innovators that are innovating different green jobs that can help the environment. Personally, we do reusable pads where we not only save the environment, but also help those who cannot afford. For example, in those grassroots districts and villages far, far away, you'll find a girl who is not going to school, not because they do not want to, but because they do not have an opportunity to. So, like you said, yes, we do follow what our teachers tell them, bringing me to the point of embedding different topics in the school curriculum. Right now, we have different things, like you say, why aren't children innovating? Why aren't children being part? Why aren't children at the front line? One of the reasons is because we do not know what is actually going on. All we are introduced to is math, English, science, SST, and so on. And yet subjects like climate change should be included in the school curriculum. That is why I ask people who are in education, please think about things like this. Last I checked, in the Ugandan policies, we have very good policies, campaigns that have been started, but like he said, they're not taken good care of. They're not seen to accomplishment. They say to Vekavera, let us stop using polythene bags. But how many strict laws have actually been there? Fines that would actually help invest in some of these problems like boreholes, or let's say starting NGOs, government schools, so children can start innovating. And to say the truth, we already are. We are not just waiting for opportunities. Personally, the Little Earth Soldiers have traveled to Nairobi just to be part of the Africa Climate Summit, not by bus, because we might not be privileged, but it's because we carry the heart that cares for our environment. I personally have been to Ethiopia for the 3rd Climate African Summit. While people were spending 1 hour or even less to go there by flight, I and my mentor spent 90 hours on the road, which equals to 6 days to and fro. Not because we want to go and show that actually this is what we're doing, so we need the funds, but because we actually care and we want to learn more, because it's from things like that that we actually learn, and we speak from experience, knowing that we are the future and we're not going to take it being sidelined. We are already acting. Thank you.
Let me now go to the last panelist, Rita. You are a community development officer in Kalungu, and we have had these nice stories about the Life AR activities in the districts. But we're interested in knowing how communities get involved in prioritizing these adaptation investments, and whether you really have seen increased community participation, and how the communities can be supported.
Thank you very much. Indeed, I am a community development officer from the mentioned district, and I've participated in this Life AR project. We have really engaged and re-engaged our communities through a number of levels. We have brought on board parish, community, climate change committees to ensure that they are the voice of their communities. So they represent the voices or the contributions from their communities. And in this, they have been able to provide land for these projects that we have implemented. They have been able to monitor the projects that we have implemented. And initially, they were involved in the climate change vulnerability analysis or assessment, where they came up with which key sub-counties and all villages that we can work in. You know, Kalungu, by its name, Kalungu means a small desert. So in that case, the whole of Kalungu is a what? Is a small desert. But our communities or our key representatives from those communities managed through their participation to identify the key areas that are not really well off to benefit from this kind of project. So community participation is very key in this, as it enables we, the thinkers, as we may think, and also the implementers, to engage ably with our communities, give them the space to talk to us, and come up with very, very beautiful ideas that can benefit them in the long run.
Thank you. Thank you, Rita. I will now, we are running short of time, I will now open this panel discussion to all of us. I need a microphone and somebody to take it around. If you have a question, a comment, or advice to the panel, I will give to the first 4 hands who have a burning question or comment or advice to the panelists. Please put up your hand. I don't see any hand, so everything looks to be very fine. I will get back to the panelists and I give each of you just 30 seconds to have a closing remark. It could be maybe a top priority for this community of practice in its first year. What should it do? Or anything that you will have to wrap up our discussion. I'll start from here and continue until we reach our youth. I'll start from here.
Thank you. Mine is very brief. I think for me, obviously as a cash activist, I would very much like to see us get to a point where we're integrating cash into our national adaptation strategy and integrating direct financing to households as the most local level of adaptation. We continue to advocate for this as Give Directly. We've seen the evidence that it works. And I mentioned before that we're working with the Ministry of Water and Environment to see how we can take this forward.
I think you should come to my home and bring some cash there. So next, Rita.
Thank you very much. I want to call upon our local governments to continue engaging and re-engaging our communities to ensure that our vulnerable groups, the women, children, persons with disabilities continue to come up and give us their beautiful ideas.
Prana.
Thank you so much, Professor. I want to thank the Minister of Water and Environment for engaging local governments in this discourse, and I want to encourage you that you maintain the pace, especially under the Life AR framework. And I was particularly touched by the poem by my sister, young daughter, Adrian, especially where she was shedding tears. She's very, very passionate about issues of climate change and environment in general. I think as duty bearers, especially for us from local governments, being on the ground, we must definitely pick a message very, very well and ensure that going forward, we passionately handle issues of environment and climate change so that this world and this earth, we can enjoy this earth, but also the future generations can also live to enjoy it. Thank you, Mr. Professor.
Dr. Nimsima.
Thank you, moderator. My concluding remark is that as we do research, we need to work together. As we got the communities, we should not leave anyone behind. As you've heard, each of us has a role to play. The academia have a role to play. The local governments have a role to play. The policy makers, if the environment is not, a policy environment is not good, then you'd not be able to implement these activities. Thank you very much.
And finally, the youngest person on the panel.
My concluding remarks would be, please continue supporting children and youth-led movements. Yes, we have seen improvement in support when it comes to youth-led movements, but even we also want to see a change in children-led movements, because just because we're children doesn't mean that we do not have something on our heads that we want to portray. And also, as we're supporting when it comes to COP, we want to see children in high-level plenaries. Let's say, like at COP, we have never seen an African child being in the plenary, sharing our minds. So please continue the good work. We're very humbled and honored that we're being included in this space. Thank you.
What a way to conclude this panel discussion. A bigger clap for the panelists, and of course the moderator also. So my brief ends there. I will hand over back to our MC to guide this forum.
Please come back. Prof, kindly, let's have a group picture right here, and I will request that the PS comes in to join. Yeah, this picture. We need to have it. I think it will be great if you stand. Yeah, if you stand, then the PS will be joining. And immediately after that, of course, we're also going to have our permanent secretary actually speaking to us, because immediately after that, he will not be going back. He will actually, I will take the honor to invite him just to be able to save up time, especially with protocol issues. I will bless myself with the power to invite Dr. Alfred Okoto-Kidi, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Water and Environment, after he takes that picture, to officially come and speak to us. And after that is when we will be transiting into the official launch of the Uganda NLA Community of Practice. Thank you so much. Let's give our panelists a big round of applause. And of course, our moderator. I know what it means to be on a tight schedule in terms of time, and yet we need to go. So ladies and gentlemen, let's give another round of applause as we welcome our chief guest to speak to us.
Thank you, Mildred. I thought I was the horse. Representatives of the government partners, the keynote speakers, the panelists, the moderator, Prof, distinguished ladies and gentlemen in your various respective capacities, let me stand on the existing protocol. I salute you all, and I would like in a very special way to extend a warm welcome to all the partners who have come from the district to share with us their precious moments and also give testimony as to what locally led adaptation in practice looks like. Thank you so much. It is an honor to join you today at the launch of this important collaboration and learning platform, the locally led adaptation community of practice. I just want to clarify, this is not about Life AR or about local. It is about locally led adaptation. This signifies the beginning of a shared commitment to rethinking how climate action is delivered in ways that place the affected communities at the center of the solutions. Often, adaptation efforts are distant from the realities of the people most affected, ignoring the fact that they are not just vulnerable, but are at the front lines, are knowledgeable and innovative. By embracing and leading implementation of locally led adaptation programs, for example, Life AR and Local, the government of Uganda demonstrates commitment to redefine the delivery of climate action to more impactful, risk-informed, and locally driven approaches. This community of practice will prioritize local actors working together with practitioners, policymakers, and researchers to create space for intentional and continuous learning, amplify local voices, and co-create knowledge, solutions, decisions that are practical, inclusive, and sustainable. And as we were challenged by the youngest panelist, she has been very active, by the way. And I think I promise you something which is still outstanding. We will sort it out. I have not forgotten. I have not forgotten. And we are working on something that I think will project you better. Involving the young people is a must. They have the best solutions because the world belongs to them. For us, we are left with few years, and the best that we can ask of them is to allow us space to rest underground peacefully. But that peace only comes if we give them the space. The community of practice will not only focus on dialogues, but clear enablers for a shift in power, resources, and decision-making closer to the communities who need them most. It will be a catalyst for building trust, strengthening partnership, and ensuring that adaptation efforts are grounded in equity and accountability. To listen to the team from the district speak about climate change in a very robust and easily understandable language, I think testifies to the fact that this approach is working. And continue and be the ambassadors, because we want to ensure that all the local governments get enrolled on board, and we shall. Ladies and gentlemen, the LDCs usually grapple with challenges of evidence and data on both impact and intervention to support engagement and resource mobilization. This locally led adaptation community of practice creates an opportunity for consolidation of evidence and documentation to support adaptation efforts. The locally led adaptation community of practice will support the implementation of nationally determined contributions, the national adaptation plans, and align well with the core mandate of the Ministry's Climate Change Department in coordination of climate action. As we launch this LAA community of practice, I encourage all of us to reflect on how we can collectively ensure adaptation is effective and local leadership is not just a principle, but a growing reality we actively enable. I implore the political and technical leadership of local governments to be more forward-looking, proactive in holding the national government and partners on delivery of adaptation support. I would also like to echo that the launch of the LAA Community of Practice marks a significant milestone in ensuring that practices and lessons from implementation of grassroots adaptation and resilience initiatives and measures shape national and global policy and development priorities. Allow me to thank all the distinguished guests and delegates who have joined us here today. Your presence signifies the willingness and the commitment to work as partners of a shared cause. In a special way, I would like to thank the government of the United Kingdom, Ireland, Canada, and Quadrilateral Climate Foundation for the financial support through the Live Air program in hosting today's launch event. I do implore and invite all of you to work with government of Uganda in supporting the operationalization of Uganda locally led adaptation community of practice. Let's keep it simple. Let's keep it easy for our people. That is the only way it will continue to be relevant. And from what we heard from the panelists, I think they were simple, easy to remember what they have said, because we were not bombarded with those jargons that is so common in some of these things around climate change. With this, it is now my honor and privilege to launch the Uganda locally led adaptation community of practice for God and my country.
So we're now officially going to have the PS. For this particular one, you are our chief guest in as much as you're the host of this Water and Environment Week. And I'm going to request all our partners, our development partners, to please join side by side as the permanent secretary appends his signature to officially launch the locally led adaptation and community of practice commitment board. To all our panelists, I think we also need to draw closer, because you're also going to make sure that you sign right on there. Yes, officially we have had a PS sign. Please, can we have all our panelists come in and also be able to append your signatures. I am going to invite all the representatives of our development partners, please, the RCCs, Irish, UK, UNCDF, Give Directly, and all our development partners, please make sure that you come. Our panelists, please, if you are behind. Now here is the point where we would ask you if you were signing for money, you don't know how much money you signed for. Yeah, but we're definitely going to have that officially read out. I will have a microphone, and of course the PS already appended the signature. The PS appended the signature to one open check, but I'll give the PS the microphone later for those of you who have signed and followed suit to let us know what exactly we actually officially did launch. To the representatives of the district local government, our chief accounting officers or administrative officers, Kalungu, Kibale, Kabong, Pader, please, if you're here, also make your way and append your signatures. Our cows, please. The representatives of the different ministries, departments, and agencies, if you're still here. Gender, energy, Maif was represented. Yes, we had some people in. The academia, please, would like to have representation. We know Makerere University, Chambogo University is here. Please, let's have you represented. And if we have any representative from the faith-based organizations, okay, yes, we have representation from the academia. And then also, last but in no means the least, we will request to have as well the civil society organizations that are still here, together with the private sector, our media representatives. Terms and conditions apply in here. You as well need to have an appended signature right there. The children are definitely represented. National Environment Management Authority, of course, I requested that the different MDAs come through and append the signature, and then we will officially know the open check that we signed, the wording on there. Okay, I think those will be it. After those signatures being appended, I think it will also be very, very lovely to have a group picture with some up here, others down. And so, by the way, as we get to leave here, please do not go. After all, there is jam. I'm just saying. So please wait for jam to subside by joining us for the cocktail. We're going to have the cocktail at the basement, the canteen where we had our lunch. So if you want jam, you can go. But if you want to continuously engage and be a part of the fanfare and just celebrating this milestone, please join us in the basement. So PS, we are wondering what we signed up for, especially that you say this was not about local, it wasn't about live AR, but it was about the locally, the LLA, Community of Practice. Let's now get to see what we signed up for, what it says. This is where you know people who ate carrots and apples.
It reads, Uganda Locally Led Adaptation Community of Practice Pledge. We, the undersigned, commit to supporting the Uganda Locally Led Adaptation Community of Practice and to placing communities at the heart of climate action. We pledge to work with trusted local structures, promote inclusion and equity, and value both indigenous and scientific knowledge in building resilience. We'll support locally driven solutions, a whole of society approach, uphold accountability in all our actions. Together we commit to championing and scaling locally led adaptation for resilient and sustainable Uganda. Thank you.
Wow. Now you know the PS had, yesterday our minister said we eat what? In Tuntunu, right? The gooseberries. So you now know the PS had enough apples and carrots, the distance from where he was reading that pledge. So ladies and gentlemen, we want to say a very special thank you to you all for making your time. It's been quite a lengthy day, but you managed to stay in. Officially, after the PS signed off that commitment board, we bring this to a close. I will request that we have a group picture. I don't know if we all could be able to fit. I just wish that we could be. But maybe I will ask our photographer which would be best. Some up, some down, or some seated and some at the back. We might not fit, but we would want all of us. So let's start with the PS. Come to sit right in the middle, and then the rest of us will get to fill up all the other places as it is. Yeah. We make sure that we have representation at least from MDS, from our development partners. Please, all of you come through. From district local governments, make your way, at least representation from the academia, CSOs, the private sector. The youth and children, please. Let's have a representation. Yeah, I know we may not all be able to fill in here, but at least if we have all that representation, please make your way. Some of us will be seated, some of us will be standing. So let's get here. Scovia. I am wondering where Scovia ran to. Commissioner Mohammed. And like I said, please join us for the cocktail or go to jam. God bless you. Yeah. Kindly, let's join in this photo. Oh, yes, I was asking for Scovia. I hadn't seen that she was actually seated. Dr. Daniel, please. Let's make our way. This picture is not yet fully. Please, let us all come. Back in the day, we even used to like, some would squat, some would sit. We want a jolly picture, by the way. Dr. Daniel, you can have a seat. Oh, except for, yes. We are having a seat saved for the ladies here. Okay. that the men have been standing too long. Make sure you're not in the crop zone. Make sure you're not in the corners of the picture, because we might want to edit it and then we cut off your hand, and then you will complain that we cut off your hand in the picture. To our paparazzi, is that good? Are we good with that? The picture is here. I tell you, if you put me in the crop zone, are we still, I'm seeing someone still zooming in a little bit. Okay, this will be the last one. Okay, the smiles, that is the last one for the smiles. All of you were looking so gloomy. One more with the smiles. One more with the smiles. That is lovely. The person who is the PS, the smile you gave. It was the World Cup smile after all. All right, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming through. The week is still on, and tomorrow we have quite a number of site visits that we're going to be having.
Start with the dialogue.
So, and tomorrow, by the way, we are having the walkers doing their standing, 24-hour stand for water and environments. It will be starting early in the morning. Please feel free to pass by and cheer them on. Now, tomorrow, the dialogue sub-theme is going to be on investment in science, technology, innovation, and capacity building to enhance progress in the water and environment management and development. Remember, this is partly what we discussed earlier on. Tomorrow, there will be a deeper conversation on that in the morning. There are also going to be quite a number of parallel discussions that will be coming through for Wednesday. So please make sure that you join in the conversation. Join us for a cocktail. That is where we had our lunch. That is in the basement at the canteen. Otherwise, journey masses for those who are leaving right now and even much later on. Let's continue with the conversation as we shift from just the discussions all through into action. May God bless you until we meet again. Tomorrow will be yet another conversation all the way up until Friday.
Life AR is an LDC-led initiative designed to enable countries like Uganda to align climate action with their own priorities and needs. At both the national and subnational levels, institutions play a crucial role in ensuring the success of Life AR. By working closely with local governments, NGOs, and communities, these institutions help to bridge the gap between policy and action, ensuring